in a world painted with hues softer than a dream, where the air hummed with forgotten melodies and the rivers whispered ancient secrets, there lived a boy named Ethel. He resided in the heart of the Whispering Vale, a secluded valley cradled by mountains that rose like sleeping giants, their peaks often shrouded in veils of mist. The vale was a pocket of persistent magic, a place where wildflowers bloomed in impossible colors, and the wind carried the scent of stories long past. Ethel was no ordinary boy. His hair was the color of spun sunlight, perpetually tousled as if just brushed by a playful breeze, and his eyes, a remarkable shade of golden amber, seemed to hold the quiet wisdom of the oldest trees. Sometimes, when the light caught them just right, or when he felt a particularly strong emotion, they would shimmer with a faint, otherworldly glow, a secret only he perceived. He lived with his grandmother, Elara, a woman whose face was a map of gentle wrinkles, each one a testament to years of quiet observation and profound understanding. Her hands, gnarled but agile, were renowned for their ability to coax life from the earth, healing herbs blossoming under her tender touch. Ilara's presence was like the steady warmth of a hearth fire on a chilly evening, comforting and deeply knowing. She spoke little, but her gaze was eloquent, conveying volumes with a mere glance. From his earliest memories, Ethel had felt a peculiar kinship with the natural world. He understood the silent language of the pines that guarded the valleys, edges, their needles rustling messages only he could truly decipher. He knew the secrets of the moss-covered stones by the stream, each one a tiny world teeming with miniature life. The deer of the forest would approach him without fear, their large, luminous eyes reflecting his own gentle spirit, and the birds would often land on his outstretched hand, singing melodies that seemed to be composed just for him, while other children in the vale, though kind and boisterous, often chased squirrels or built dams in the stream. Ethel would spend hours simply listening to the world, feeling a faint, resonant hum beneath the surface of everyday life, a hum that hinted at something grander, something deeply magical, yet subtly fading. Every night, as the moon cast its silvery light over the sleeping valley, and the distant hoot of an owl echoed through the quiet air, Ethel would drift into dreams. These were no ordinary childish fantasies of flying or fantastical beasts. His dreams were vivid tapestries, woven from golden light and forgotten memories. He would often find himself standing before a magnificent city, high above the clouds, built of radiant marble that gleamed with an inner luminescence. Pillars carved with intricate patterns reached towards a sky of perpetual dawn, and gentle music, like the whispering of 1,000 harps, seemed to emanate from its very stones. Figures of immense grace and serene power, wreathed in soft light, would move through its grand halls. Yet, with each dream, the city seemed a little dimmer, a little more distant, the music fainter, the figures more ethereal, like reflections on water rippled by an unseen hand. It was a beautiful, heartbreaking vision, a portrait of fading glory, and Ethel would wake with a profound sense of longing, a quiet ache in his young heart for a place he had never seen, yet somehow deeply remembered. Life in the Whispering Vale was peaceful, governed by the rhythms of the seasons. Spring brought a riot of color and the joyous chirping of newly hatched birds. Summer filled the air with the scent of sun-warmed earth and ripe berries. Autumn painted the leaves in fiery hues before they gracefully danced to the ground. Winter swaddled the valley in a blanket of pristine white, silencing the world under a crystalline hush. Ethel helped his grandmother tend her medicinal garden, learning the names and properties of every plant, feeling the life force thrumming beneath their green leaves. He learned to distinguish the rustle of a helpful healing herb from a merely decorative fern, to feel the specific needs of a wilting blossom. His touch, Ilara often observed, was remarkably light, almost as if the plants themselves responded to his presence. One crisp autumn morning, a subtle change began to creep into the familiar tapestry of the vale. Ethel, during his usual walk by the sunken stream, noticed it first. The vibrant emerald moss on the ancient stones, usually so rich and velvety, seemed to have taken on a dull, muted shade, a faint greyish pallor dimming its life. The clear water of the stream, usually bubbling with effervescence, flowed with a sluggish, almost weary grace. The familiar songbirds, whose melodies usually filled the air with joyous refrains, sang with less vigour, their tunes tinged with an unfamiliar melancholy. Even the light which normally streamed through the golden leaves with such cheerful abandon seemed filtered through a thin, almost invisible veil, casting the world in a softer, more subdued glow. As the days turned into weeks, the subtle signs grew more pronounced. The wild berries, which usually swelled with juice and sweetness, remained small and tart. The air, usually redolent with the fresh scent of pine and damp earth, began to carry a faint, inexplicable scent of dust and silence. A feeling of quiet, despondency settled over the magical creatures of the vale. The deer moved with heavier steps, their eyes holding a hint of weariness. The playful river otters, usually so full of mischievous energy, would glide through the water with uncharacteristic slowness, their sleek fur lacking its usual luster. The very earth seemed to be exhaling a slow, sorrowful sigh. Ilara, observing these changes with her knowing eyes, grew increasingly concerned. She spent long hours poring over ancient leather-bound texts, her brow furrowed in concentration. One evening, as the shadows lengthened and the first stars began to prick the twilight sky, she called Ethel to her side. The hearth fire crackled softly, casting dancing patterns on the walls of their cosy cottage, and a pot of chamomile tea steamed gently on the hob, its fragrant aroma filling the small room. "Ethel, my dear," she began, her voice softer than usual. "The time has come for truths long kept in shadow to finally step into the light." She reached into a small, intricately carved wooden chest that usually held dried herbs and small polished stones. From its depths, she drew out a single object. It was a smooth, pearlescent stone, no larger than Ethel's thumb, cool and comforting to the touch. It shimmered with a faint inner light, like a captive moonbeam. Engraved upon its surface was a symbol Ethel had seen many times in his dreams, an intertwined knot of swirling lines, resembling both a sun and a lyre, radiating outwards. "This," Ilara said, her gaze fixed on the stone, then lifting to meet Ethel's golden eyes, "was with you when I found you, a tiny babe nestled amongst the roots of the eldest oak at the very edge of the Whispering Vale. You were wrapped in a silken cloth, woven with threads that seemed to catch the dawn. And this stone lay warm against your tiny chest. It was then I knew you were of a lineage unlike any other, of the old lineage, as the ancient tales call it. Ethel's heart gave a quiet thrum. 1,000 questions, long unspoken, now seemed to gather on the tip of his tongue. He traced the symbol on the stone with a curious finger, feeling a deep, familiar resonance, as if a missing piece of his own heart had just clicked into place. "The blight that touches our valley now," Ilara continued, her voice gaining a grave yet gentle tone, "is not a simple illness of the land. It is a symptom, a visible sigh of a deeper sorrow. The world, my dear Ethel, is forgetting its song. The vibrant magic that once flowed freely from the radiant heights of Olympus, the home of the gods, has waned over the ages. Humanity, in its quest for understanding, turned away from wonder, from the unseen, from the whispers of the divine. And as they forgot, so too did the gods' vibrant presence dim, their music soften, their light retreat. Olympus itself, the city you see in your dreams, has become a beautiful yet fading memory, a dream of what once was." Ethel listened, mesmerized, the pearlescent stone warm in his palm. His dreams, the hum he felt, the golden shimmer in his eyes. It all began to make a strange, beautiful sense. "You, Ethel," Ilara said, her eyes now shining with a profound conviction, "are a thread connecting this fading world to that ancient radiant past. You are the last son, not of a dying lineage, but of a forgotten one. A spark of the old fires, the very essence of light and healing. The whispers say you are a son of Apollo, the radiant god of light, music, healing, and prophecy. Though your mother was a mortal woman of great gentleness and wisdom, who sought to shield you from a world that had forgotten such wonders. It is why you feel the world's song, why the light loves your eyes, why the plants respond to your touch." She paused, allowing her words to settle into the quiet space between them. Ethel felt a sense of awe, tinged with a solemn responsibility. "The blight emanates from the mountain of echoes," Ilara revealed, pointing towards the tallest, most enigmatic peak that loomed in the distance, its summit often wreathed in mysterious clouds. "It is not a place of evil, but of profound sorrow, where the last echoes of divine power were sealed away when the gods began to retreat. That seal, I fear, is weakening. What escapes is not a curse, but a deep, pervasive melancholy, a magical decay caused by the world's sorrow and its loss of connection. You must journey there, Ethel, to the heart of this fading magic, to understand it, and perhaps with your unique light to heal it. You are the bridge, the rekindler. Idge, the rekindler." Ethel looked down at the glowing stone in his hand, then back at his grandmother's steadfast face. His heart beat a little faster, not with fear, but with a burgeoning sense of purpose. The world was crying out, and he, the boy who listened to whispers and saw dreams of fading glory, was being asked to answer. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that he must embark on this journey. The hum of magic in the air, usually so faint, now resonated with a clearer call, pulling him towards his destiny. The next morning, under a sky still soft with dawn's blush, Ethel prepared for his journey. Ilara packed a small satchel for him, filled with dried fruit, fragrant bread, a small flask of spring water, and a pouch of her most potent healing herbs. She also gifted him a beautifully carved wooden flute, its surface smooth and warm under his fingers. "Music, my dear Ethel," she explained, is the language of the soul, and a gentle balm to a weary spirit. Let its notes be your companion and your guide." She pressed a lingering kiss to his forehead, her eyes filled with both love and a quiet pride. "Remember, my sweet boy, the greatest strength lies not in thunderous power, but in quiet kindness, in listening, and in the unwavering light of hope you carry within." With a final, heartfelt embrace, Ethel stepped out of their cozy cottage, the pearlescent stone tucked safely into a small pouch around his neck, the flute secured to his belt. The golden shimmer in his eyes was a little brighter now, reflecting the morning sun. His path led him first towards the Whispering Woods, a vast expanse of ancient trees that bordered the valley, their branches intertwined overhead like the arches of a grand cathedral. As he ventured deeper into the woods, the air grew cooler, dappled sunlight filtering through the dense canopy in shifting patterns of gold and green. The silence here was different from the gentle hush of the vale. It was an ancient, knowing silence, broken only by the rustle of leaves and the distant call of a cuckoo. The trees themselves, some of them impossibly old, their trunks thick with moss and gnarled with age, seemed to lean towards him, their branches forming welcoming archways. Ethel walked for hours, his steps light and purposeful. He felt the subtle decline of the woods too. The leaves, though still beautiful, seemed to lack their usual vivid sheen, and the undergrowth was less abundant. He paused by a gurgling brook, bending to splash cool water on his face. As he rose, he noticed a small figure peeking out from behind a particularly broad fern. It was a forest sprite, no taller than his knee, with skin the colour of bark, eyes like polished acorns, and hair made of twisting vines and tiny dewy leaves. Its expression was one of shy curiosity, tinged with a hint of sorrow. "Greetings," Ethel whispered, his voice soft as he had learned to speak to the wild things. "I am Ethel. What troubles you, little one?" The sprite, startled by his voice, almost vanished into the foliage. But then, seeing the gentle kindness in Ethel's golden eyes, it hesitated. Slowly, it emerged fully, its tiny hands clutching a wilting flower. "Hey, Phelan," it squeaked, its voice like the rustle of dry leaves. "My name is Phelan. The blight. It touches us too. The flowers sleep too long. The sap runs slow. The forest forgets its dreams." Ethel knelt down, his heart aching for the little creature's sorrow. "I know, Phelan. I'm on a journey to understand, to help rekindle the world's song." He gently touched the wilting flower. As his fingers brushed its petals, a faint golden light, invisible to the eye but felt by the spirit, flowed from him. The flower, as if sighing in relief, began to regain a hint of its former colour, its petals straightening, its stem firming slightly. Phelan's acorn eyes widened in wonder. You have the light!" it exclaimed, a spark of hope igniting in its small form. The old tale spoke of a son of light, who would feel the world's sorrow and offer solace. "You are him!" Ethel smiled, a shy, gentle smile. "I'm only Ethel, but I wish to help." Phelan, emboldened, began to guide him, scampering ahead with surprising agility. "Come, Ethel, I know paths the blight has touched less, and places where ancient whispers still linger. Perhaps they will speak to you." For days, Phelan was Ethel's steadfast companion. The sprite, despite its initial shyness, was an endless fount of forest lore. It taught Ethel how to read the subtle shifts in the wind, not just as a current of air, but as a messenger carrying the scents of distant meadows or the faint echoes of far-off streams. Phelan showed him how to distinguish the lament of a dying tree from the gentle sigh of a sleeping one, and how the ancient roots of the woods were interconnected, forming a vast silent network beneath the earth, a living tapestry that carried nourishment and shared whispers of deep time. Ethel, with Phelan's guidance, began to discover his first gentle Olympian magic. He found that by placing his hands on a parched sapling and focusing his warmth, a faint golden shimmer would emanate from his fingers, and the sapling would visibly perk up, its leaves unfurling with renewed vigor. When a bird caught in a thorny bush cried out in distress, Ethel found that a soft, melodic hum from his lips, combined with a gentle touch, would calm the creature, allowing it to free itself without further harm. He learned that his magic was not about dramatic displays of power, but about quiet connection, about listening, soothing, and encouraging life. It was a magic born of empathy and light, a true reflection of his heritage. As they journeyed deeper, the forest changed. The trees grew taller, their branches forming an even denser canopy, making the path dim even in midday. The ground became softer, covered in thick moss and fallen leaves, silencing their footsteps. Phelan led him to a clearing where ancient crumbling stone pillars, adorned with faded carvings of nymphs and satyrs, stood half overgrown with ivy. This was a place, Phelan explained, where the forest spirits once danced under the full moon, celebrating the vibrant life of the world. Now only a faint echo of that joy remained. The Whispering Woods remember much, Phelan whispered, its voice hushed. But the memory grows faint, like a dream at dawn. The path ahead leads to the sunken village of Eridor, a place where the waters hold forgotten stories. Ethel spent another night under the immense canopy. Phelan curled up in the crook of his arm, a tiny warmth against his side. He dreamed of the shimmering city again, but this time he saw faint, golden threads extending from it, connecting to the earth, to the trees, to the waters. These threads, in his dream, were growing brittle, some snapping, others simply fading into nothingness. He woke with a renewed sense of urgency. The next morning, they bade farewell to the Whispering Woods, Phelan promising to watch over the forest until Ethel returned. The sprite vanished into the foliage with a tiny wave, leaving Ethel to continue his journey alone, though he felt a deeper connection to the woods than ever before. The path eventually led Ethel out of the dense forest and into a different landscape. The trees thinned, giving way to rolling hills, draped in a peculiar silvery mist that never seemed to dissipate entirely. In the heart of this misty expanse, Ethel saw it, the sunken village of Eridor. It was a place of haunting beauty, a collection of old stone houses and cobbled paths, half submerged in a mystical, slow-moving fog. The mist wasn't cold, but possessed a strange, almost melancholic warmth, like a forgotten sigh. Water, imbued with the mist's ethereal glow, gathered in pools around the ancient foundations, reflecting the perpetual twilight of the place. As Ethel approached, the silence was profound, broken only by the gentle lapping of the mist-laden water against the submerged walls. He stepped cautiously onto a stone path, its edges worn smooth by centuries of water and time. The air hummed with a different kind of magic here, a heavier, more ancient kind, pregnant with untold stories. He could almost hear the echoes of laughter and daily life, long faded into the past. He explored the silent lanes, his golden eyes taking in the details. A rusted weather vane atop a leaning roof, a beautifully carved wooden door half submerged in the milky water, a forgotten garden bench now adorned with ethereal, glowing moss. He felt a deep sadness here, a sense of profound loss, like a beloved song that had ceased mid-note. As he reached what seemed to be the village square, dominated by a large ornate fountain now silent and still, Ethel saw a shimmering translucent figure seated on a moss-covered stone. It was the spirit of an old man, his form wavering like heat haze, yet his features were clearly etched. A kind face, a long flowing beard, and eyes that held the twinkle of distant memories. He held an equally ethereal scroll in his translucent hands. "Welcome, young wanderer," the spirit said, his voice a melodic whisper, like water flowing over smooth stones. "It has been centuries since a living soul with such light in their heart has graced Eridor." Ethel bowed respectfully. "Greetings. I am Ethel. Are you the keeper of this place?" The spirit smiled, a gentle, sorrowful expression. "I am Lysander, once a storyteller of Eridor, now merely an echo. This village, once vibrant, fell into this state not through natural disaster, but through a slow forgetting. As the world turned its back on the magical, so too did the magic of Eridor begin to recede, until our very existence became a whisper, and our form dissolved into this pervasive mist." Lysander gestured around the submerged village. "We once thrived on the stories, on the belief in the unseen. Our lives were interwoven with the magic of the land, with the gentle blessings of the Olympians. We worshipped the sun, sang praises to the moon, and offered thanks to the rivers. But as belief waned, so did the connection, like a forgotten melody slowly fading from memory." Ethel felt a pang of understanding. This was the blight in its truest form. Not a curse, but the deep wound of separation, of forgetfulness. "You carry a light, young Ethel," Lysander observed, his gaze penetrating. "A light I have not seen since the Golden Age, when the gods walked more openly among us. You are a child of that age, are you not? A son of the Shining One?" Ethel nodded, touching the pearlescent stone beneath his tunic. "My grandmother told me I am a son of Apollo. I seek to rekindle the world's song, to heal this fading." A glimmer of hope entered Lysander's ethereal eyes. "Then you are truly welcome here, for our stories may aid you. Sit, young Ethel, and listen, for in the tales of old lie the truths of tomorrow." Ethel sat on a dry, mossy patch of stone, captivated as Lysander began to speak. The spirit spun fragmented tales of the golden age of Olympus, his voice weaving through the mist, painting pictures in Ethel's mind. He spoke of Zeus, the king of the gods, his thunder not of anger, but of vibrant power, his wisdom overseeing the balance of the cosmos. He spoke of Hera, the queen, not just of jealousy, but of profound protection and the sanctity of life. He spoke of Poseidon, whose mighty trident stirred not only seas, but the very currents of change. And he spoke of Apollo, Ethel's divine father, the radiant one whose lyre wove the sun into golden melodies, whose arrows brought not only swiftness, but healing, whose prophecies guided the wise, and whose very presence imbued the world with light and harmony. Lysander described how these gods, and many others, once imbued the world with their vibrant energy, how the forests teemed with nymphs, the rivers with naiads, and the air with playful sprites. He spoke of humans living in harmony with these beings, celebrating the cycles of nature, and offering their belief as a form of sustenance to the gods, strengthening their connection. But then slowly, imperceptibly, things began to shift. Humans, driven by curiosity and a growing self-reliance, began to question the unseen, to seek answers in logic and tangibility rather than in faith and wonder. The gods, sensing this growing distance, did not abandon humanity, but rather began to recede, their forms becoming less visible, their voices softer, their magic more subtle. Olympus, once a bustling hub of divine energy, gradually became a quieter, more reflective realm, its light dimming, its music fading. The fading was not an act of malice, young Ethel, Lysander concluded, his voice tinged with a deep sorrowful wisdom. It was the consequence of a forgotten connection, a weakening of the vital threads that wove the divine into the mortal world. The blight you see, the sorrow you feel, is but the world's response to this great severance, this silence where a vibrant song once echoed. As Lysander spoke, Ethel felt a profound sense of clarity. The world needed to remember its song, to mend the broken threads. You carry a unique echo of that song, Ethel, Lysander said, his translucent hand gesturing towards a submerged, ornate archway. Beyond that arch lies the path to the crystal caves of Lumina. There, ancient knowledge is stored, preserved by the residual light of Apollo himself. Seek the Chamber of Whispers. You will find an answer there, a clearer path to your destiny. With a final, wistful smile, Lysander's form grew even more ethereal, shimmering like a heat haze, before dissolving entirely into the pervasive mist, leaving only the profound silence of Eridor in his wake. Ethel stood, his heart filled with both sorrow for the forgotten village and a renewed determination. He had a clearer understanding of his task now, a sense of the immense responsibility he carried. He followed the faint, almost invisible path that led through the archway Lysander had indicated. The air grew cooler, and the mist thinned, giving way to a narrow passage carved into the side of a steep, rocky incline. The passage twisted and turned, descending deeper and deeper into the earth, until all natural light was gone. It was not a frightening darkness, however, but a soft, enveloping gloom that hinted at something wondrous ahead. Soon, a faint crystalline glow began to emerge from the depths. As Ethel rounded a final bend, he gasped softly. He stood at the entrance of the crystal caves of Lumina, a breathtaking subterranean wonderland. The caves were enormous, their walls, ceilings, and floors adorned with countless crystals of every conceivable size and shape. They pulsed with an inner light, casting the cavern in a kaleidoscope of soft, shimmering colors, amethyst purples, emerald greens, sapphire blues, and ruby reds, all intermingling with a predominant golden-white luminescence. The light was not harsh, but gentle, like captured starlight, making the air feel alive and vibrant. The silence here was different again. It was a resonant silence, filled with the faint hum of the crystals themselves, like 1,000 tiny bells ringing in harmony. Ethel walked deeper into the cave, his footsteps hushed by the thick layer of crystalline dust on the ground. He passed through grottos adorned with stalactites and stalagmites that glittered like frozen waterfalls, their surfaces catching and refracting the light into dizzying patterns. He noticed that certain crystals pulsed with a stronger light than others, and as he approached them, he felt a faint resonance, a thrumming that echoed the one he felt from the pearlescent stone around his neck. It was as if these crystals held fragments of memory, echoes of the ancient magic that once saturated the world. After what felt like hours, navigating through the labyrinthine passages, Ethel arrived at a grand circular chamber, larger and more radiant than any he had seen. The crystals here were immense, forming natural pillars that soared to the high, vaulted ceiling, each one glowing with a pure, unwavering golden light. In the very center of the chamber stood a natural pedestal of polished crystal, and upon it rested a single object. It was not a scroll or a map, but a beautifully crafted lyre of glimmering quartz. kinjahe, its strings woven from threads that seemed to catch and hold the light. It was smaller than he imagined, fitting perfectly into his hands, and imbued with an aura of immense peace and gentle power. As Ethel reached out to touch it, a soft, warm light enveloped him, and he felt a profound connection, as if the lyre itself was singing to his very soul. As his fingers brushed the quartz strings, a wave of visions, clearer and more direct than his dreams, washed over him. He saw Apollo, radiant and serene, playing this very lyre, his music weaving the fabric of the cosmos, bringing order and beauty to the nascent world. He saw light flowing from the lyre, healing wounds, inspiring poets, and guiding ships. He saw a mortal woman, his mother, with a gentle smile and eyes filled with love, hiding the lyre in this very chamber, knowing that one day her son, a child of light and hope, would return to claim it. He understood now that this lyre was not merely an instrument. It was a conduit, a vessel for the divine song, a piece of Apollo's essence. The vision faded, leaving Ethel standing there, the lyre of glimmering quartz warm in his hands, its strings humming a silent yet potent melody. He knew with an absolute certainty that this was the answer Lysander had spoken of. This lyre was one of the tools he needed to rekindle the world's song. It wasn't about playing grand, booming notes, but about awakening the quiet, inherent harmony that still lay dormant within the world. He spent a long time in the Chamber of Whispers, simply holding the lyre, feeling its connection to him. He discovered that a gentle touch of its strings produced not an audible sound, but a vibration, a warmth that resonated with his own heart. He understood that his task was to awaken the world's memory of harmony, to gently encourage the forgotten music back into existence. The lyre, he knew, would be his guide. With the lyre of glimmering quartz secured carefully in his satchel, wrapped in soft cloth, Ethel emerged from the crystal caves of Lumina, feeling a newfound sense of purpose and a deeper understanding of his own abilities. The golden glow in his eyes seemed brighter now, and the invisible hum of magic in the air was a clear, comforting melody. His journey continued, leading him out of the mountains and into a vast, open expanse that stretched as far as the eye could see. This was the shifting sands of Zephyr, a gentle desert where the dunes flowed like silent golden rivers, constantly reshaped by the unseen hands of the wind. The air here was dry and warm, carrying the faint earthy scent of sun-baked sand and hardy desert blooms. The sky above was an endless canvas of brilliant blue during the day, transforming into a breathtaking tapestry of 1,000,000 stars at night. Ethel found that walking here was different from the forest or the misty village. The sand shifted beneath his feet, making each step a gentle challenge, and the vastness of the landscape invited a quiet introspection. He noticed how the wind carved intricate patterns into the dunes, like ephemeral artwork, and how the faint whispers of the breeze seemed to carry stories across the endless expanse. This was a place of patience, of endurance, and of listening to the subtle narratives of the natural world. After several days of steady travel, guided by the stars at night and the sun during the day, Ethel spotted a small, solitary encampment nestled between two towering dunes. A wisp of smoke curled upwards from a small campfire, carrying the faint scent of roasting herbs. As he approached, a figure emerged from a sturdy woven tent. She was an elder woman, her face tanned and wise, her dark eyes sparkling with intelligence and kindness. Her hair, streaked with silver, was intricately braided, adorned with small polished desert stones. She wore robes woven from naturally dyed threads, blending seamlessly with the colors of the desert. Greetings, young wanderer, she called out, her voice clear and resonant, like the chime of distant bells. The winds have whispered of your approach for some time. I am Zara of the Star Watchers, and you are welcome at my hearth. Ethel felt an immediate sense of trust and warmth radiating from Zara. Thank you, Zara. I am Ethel, and I travel to understand the fading of the world's magic. Zara smiled knowingly. Ah, yes, the great forgetting. The desert feels it too, though our roots run deep into time itself. Come, share my fire, and let the stories of the stars guide you. Ethel spent several days with Zara, learning the ways of the desert. She taught him to read the language of the wind, not just its direction or strength, but its subtle variations, the way it hummed different tunes depending on the message it carried, whether a change in weather, the approach of animals, or the fading echo of ancient memories. She showed him how to find hidden springs beneath the sand, how to listen to the tiny whispers of life that persisted even in this vast expanse. Zara, a master of celestial navigation and ancient lore, also shared the stories of the stars. She spoke of their patterns as the grand constellations of the Olympian gods, visible tapestries of their myths woven into the night sky. She taught Ethel how the movements of the planets, named after the gods, influenced the subtle flow of magic on Earth, and how, as the gods' presence waned, so too did the stars' vibrant influence dim, making their whispers harder to hear, their guidance less clear. One evening, as the twin moons cast long ethereal shadows across the dunes, Zara led Ethel to a cluster of ancient wind-sculpted rock formations. The wind spirits are restless here, young Ethel, she explained. They feel the fading deeply, and sometimes their sorrow manifests as a subtle illusion, a maze woven from the very air. You must learn to listen to their true whispers, to find your way through, for only then will you understand the flow of time and the gentle power of patience. As Ethel stepped between the rocks, the world around him seemed to shift. The dunes began to dance, their shapes morphing, making the path ahead unclear. He felt disoriented, a subtle sense of unease creeping into his mind. He closed his eyes, remembering Zara's words, and focused on the wind. He listened not with his ears alone, but with his entire being, feeling the currents, the subtle shifts in pressure, the true direction of the breeze. He began to play his lyre of glimmering quartz, not audibly, but letting its silent resonance guide him. The gentle vibrations seemed to cut through the illusion, clarifying the shifting shapes. He felt the wind spirits respond, their agitated movements calming, drawn by the pure, harmonious hum of the lyre. Slowly, painstakingly, he navigated the illusionary maze, learning to trust his intuition, his connection to the subtle energies of the world, and the silent guidance of the lyre. When he emerged, Zara was waiting, her eyes bright with approval. You have learned patience, Ethel, and how to hear the true song beneath the restless winds. The world needs to remember the rhythm of time, the flow of change, and the steadfastness of what truly endures. These are gifts the desert offers. Zara then revealed her final gift. She handed him a small, intricately carved compass made of petrified wood, its needle perpetually pointing towards a faint inner glow. This compass, Ethel, points not to north, but to the Oracle's Grove, a place where ancient prophecies were once spoken. Its spirit lingers there, a testament to the foresight and wisdom of Apollo, your divine father. Go there and listen to the echoes of past wisdom. It will grant you clarity. With a heartfelt goodbye, Ethel left Zara and the shifting sands behind, carrying with him a deeper understanding of patience, the wisdom of the wind, and the silent language of the stars. The oracle's grove awaited, a place of profound revelations. The journey to the oracle's grove led Ethel through lands that gradually became greener again, though still touched by the fading. He passed through gentle foothills covered in ancient olive trees, their silvery green leaves whispering in the breeze, and by clear streams that flowed from the mountains, their waters cool and refreshing. The air grew richer, scented with pine and damp earth, a welcome change from the dry desert. Finally, after days of walking, guided by Zara's luminous compass, Ethel arrived at the oracle's grove. It was a clearing of immense, primordial beauty, dominated by an ancient, gnarled oak tree that stood at its very center. The tree was impossibly old, its trunk wider than his cottage, its branches reaching towards the sky like arthritic fingers, some of them barren, others still clinging to a few sparse golden leaves. Its bark was a tapestry of wrinkles and furrows, each groove telling a silent story of centuries. The ground beneath it was covered in a thick carpet of velvety moss, cool and soft underfoot, and encircled by a ring of smooth, lichen-covered stones. The grove hummed with a different kind of silence than he had encountered before, a heavy, expectant quiet, as if the air itself was holding its breath, awaiting a revelation. The oracle, as Lysander had said, was long gone, its physical form having withered centuries ago, but its spirit undeniably lingered in the ancient tree, a profound presence that emanated a sense of boundless, yet sorrowful wisdom. As Ethel approached the venerable tree, he felt a wave of emotions wash over him, a deep melancholy for the fading wisdom, a quiet reverence for the enduring spirit, and a growing sense of awe. He sat among the moss-covered stones, placing his lyre of glimmering quartz on the ground beside him. He closed his golden eyes, took a deep breath, and focused, allowing himself to become attuned to the subtle energies of the grove, to the very heart of the ancient oak. He placed his hands on the rough bark of the tree, feeling the slow, deliberate pulse of its life. He began to play his flute, the gentle, reedy notes weaving into the quiet air, a melody of hope and longing. It was a simple tune, one his grandmother had taught him, full of the quiet beauty of the whispering vale. As he played, the pearlescent stone around his neck began to thrum with a stronger pulse, and a faint golden light, visible only to him, radiated from his fingertips, flowing into the ancient tree. As the music flowed, Ethel felt a connection, a profound communion with the spirit of the oracle. He began to perceive images, not as vivid as the lyre's vision, but as soft, echoing whispers in his mind, fragments of ancient prophecies, glimpses of past glories and future possibilities. He saw the world as a grand, intricate tapestry, its threads woven by the gods and by humanity. He saw how the fading had unraveled parts of this tapestry, creating gaps and tears. He understood that his purpose was not to reweave the entire fabric, but to find the crucial, broken threads and gently mend them, to restore the flow, the connection, the inherent harmony. Then a clear, resonating voice, not spoken aloud, but resonating directly within his mind, spoke to him. It was a voice ancient and timeless, yet filled with a profound gentleness, like the rustle of leaves in a wise old wind. Son of light, hear the truth of your path. The world's song, the vibrant essence of Olympus, has faded not into oblivion, but into a deep slumber. To awaken it, to restore the balance and mend the tapestry, you must perform 3 acts of renewal, gathering 3 vital keys. These keys are not objects of power, but reflections of the very essence of life, hope and connection, the voice continued, outlining his next steps with profound clarity. seek the ember of ether, to rekindle the light of hope in a world shrouded by forgetfulness. It resides in the highest peak, the pinnacle of whispers, where the air meets the heavens, and silence holds the most profound truths. Discover the dewdrop of Elysium, to restore life and vibrant growth to lands parched by sorrow. It lies deep within a forgotten sacred spring, guarded by the delicate balance of a vibrant fen. Awaken the whisper of harmonia, to bring back balance and interconnectedness, the lost melody of the cosmos. It sleeps within the very heart of the mountain of echoes, where the last divine echoes linger. The voice faded, leaving Ethel with a profound sense of understanding, of immense clarity. The path was laid before him, not as a daunting challenge, but as a sacred pilgrimage. He now had a purpose, a clearer definition of the divine song he was meant to help rekindle. He knew his journey was far from over, but the quiet determination in his heart burned brighter than ever. He rose from the mossy ground, collected his flute and lyre, and with a grateful nod to the ancient oak, set off towards his next destination, the pinnacle of whispers. The journey to the pinnacle of whispers was the most arduous yet, not in terms of physical danger, but in the sheer scale and solitude of the ascent. The pinnacle was the highest peak in the known world, its summit perpetually crowned with a diadem of clouds, its lower slopes shrouded in a mystical blue haze. The path wound upwards through ancient silent forests where the trees grew sparser with altitude, their forms becoming more twisted and resilient against the biting wind. As Ethel climbed, the air grew thinner and cooler, carrying the crisp scent of ice and ancient stone. The landscape transformed, from the verdant slopes below to a stark, magnificent grandeur of jagged rock faces and sheer cliffs. Yet, even here, the subtle blight of fading magic was apparent. The sparse alpine flowers were muted, their colors less vibrant, and the occasional mountain goat he spotted moved with a quiet weariness. He learned to breathe deeply, to pace himself, to conserve his energy in the thin air. The days were long, punctuated by the silent, majestic panorama of the world stretching out beneath him, and the nights were intensely cold, but filled with the breathtaking spectacle of the stars, glittering like scattered diamonds in the inky blackness. He found shelter in small rock overhangs, huddled in his cloak, playing soft, wordless melodies on his flute to ward off the chill and the quiet hum of loneliness. The lyre of glimmering quartz, wrapped in his satchel, provided a subtle inner warmth, a constant reminder of his purpose. One afternoon, as Ethel ascended a particularly steep and challenging section, navigating a narrow ledge with care, he encountered a being unlike any he had seen before. It was a creature of pure ethereal light, shimmering with a soft, silvery glow. Its form was fluid, constantly shifting between that of a majestic hawk, a graceful cloud, and a translucent winged human shape. Its eyes, the color of a clear twilight sky, held an ancient wisdom and a gentle sorrow. "Greetings, son of light," the creature chimed, its voice like the soft tinkling of ice crystals. "I am Celeste, a sky spirit, and I have watched your ascent with interest. Few mortals dare to climb these heights, and fewer still possess the pure heart that radiates from you." Ethel, though momentarily awestruck, bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Celeste. I am Ethel, and I seek the ember of ether to rekindle the light of hope." Celeste's form solidified slightly into a more human-like shape, her long, flowing hair appearing like spun moonlight. "Hope is a fragile thing. easily lost in the winds of despair that now sweep our world. The ember of ether is not a physical flame, but a spark of pure, unyielding optimism, a light born of unwavering belief. It is found not by seeking, but by being. She gestured towards the vast cloud-filled expanse above them. The air here, Ethel, is filled with the oldest dreams, the highest aspirations, but also with the deepest doubts, the quietest fears. The blight of fading magic affects the very fabric of belief, making hope harder to grasp. You must learn to see beyond the clouds, to touch the vastness and wonder of the sky, and to find that spark within yourself, and within the world around you, even in its quietest corners. Celeste became his guide for the final ascent, soaring gracefully beside him, sometimes manifesting as a silent, watchful shadow, other times as a gust of wind that gently nudged him away from a treacherous patch of ice. She taught him about the vastness and wonder of the sky, how the clouds, though seemingly ephemeral, held within them the promise of rain and renewal, how the sunlight, though sometimes obscured, was an eternal, unwavering presence. She spoke of how belief, like a seed, needed to be nurtured, protected from the cold winds of doubt, allowed to grow into a towering tree of conviction. As they reached the upper slopes, the world below them vanished entirely, hidden beneath a vast, shimmering ocean of clouds. It was like standing on the edge of the world, suspended between earth and heaven. The air was thin, silent, and incredibly still, imbued with a profound sense of peace. Celeste landed beside him, her form glowing softly. "We are at the summit, Ethel, the pinnacle of whispers. Here, the world's quietest secrets are revealed, and the faintest spark of hope can ignite the greatest fire. To gather the ember of ether, you must find that spark, that unwavering hope, not in some grand gesture, but in the deepest quiet of your own heart, and then project it like a beacon into the very fabric of the sky." Ethel sat cross-legged on the icy rock, the piercing cold ignored. He closed his eyes, focusing inward. He thought of his grandmother Alara, her unwavering faith in him. He thought of Phelan, the little sprite clutching its wilting flower, yet looking at him with hope. He thought of Lysander, the ancient storyteller, his ethereal eyes gleaming with the belief that the world's song could be rekindled. He thought of Zara, her quiet wisdom, her trust in the stars and the unseen forces. He remembered the shimmering city in his dreams, radiant and full of light, a promise of what could be, what would be again. He then reached for his lyre of glimmering quartz, carefully unwrapping it. He didn't play it, but simply held it close to his chest, feeling its pure, harmonious hum resonate with his own growing sense of hope. He focused on the warmth of the pearlescent stone around his neck, the gift of his divine father, Apollo, the god of light. He felt a profound sense of connection, not just to the divine, but to the world below him, to all the quiet, enduring beauty that still existed despite the fading. A golden light, far brighter and more potent than any he had manifested before, began to emanate from his entire being. It wasn't a fierce burning light, but a warm, gentle glow, pure and steady, like the first rays of dawn. It pulsed outwards, cutting through the thin air, illuminating the swirling clouds, pushing back the shadows of doubt and despair. He felt the pure, unyielding spark of optimism within him swell, becoming a beacon, a living, breathing ember of ether. He was the ember. Celeste watched, her twilight eyes filled with wonder. The golden light permeated her translucent form, making her shimmer with renewed vitality. "You have done it, Ethel!" she whispered, her voice a chime of pure joy. "You have not merely found the ember, you have become it. You are the embodiment of rekindled hope." The golden light slowly receded, leaving Ethel feeling profoundly peaceful, yet invigorated. He knew now that the ember of ether wasn't an object he could carry, but an essence he had awakened within himself, a constant, unwavering light of hope that would guide his path. He had truly learned to see beyond the clouds, to touch the vastness and wonder, and to realize that hope, even in the bleakest of times, was always there, waiting to be rekindled. With a heart full of renewed resolve, Ethel began his descent, Celeste soaring gracefully beside him for a time, a silent, glowing companion. The world, though still showing signs of the fading, seemed a little brighter, a little less sorrowful through his eyes. He carried the ember of ether, not in his satchel, but in the luminous core of his being. His next quest, to discover the dewdrop of Elysium, would lead him to the whispering fen and a forgotten sacred spring. He needed to restore life and vibrant growth, to mend the wounds of sorrow that had parched the land. The journey from the high, serene peaks of the pinnacle of whispers led Ethel downwards through varied landscapes. He traversed gentle mist-kissed foothills and winding river valleys, the air growing warmer and more humid with each passing day. The signs of the fading magic here were even more pronounced than in the higher elevations. Patches of once lush meadows now held brittle, yellowed grasses. Rivers flowed with a disheartening slowness, their banks choked with weeds that lacked their usual vitality. The forests, though still beautiful, had a muted quality, their leaves duller, their undergrowth sparse. The subtle, sorrowful hum of the world was a constant companion, a quiet lament that echoed the fading of life itself. After weeks of travel, the landscape began to change dramatically. The ground became softer, spongier, covered in thick emerald mosses and strange luminous fungi that glowed with a faint, otherworldly light even in daylight. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth, blooming water lilies, and the musky aroma of ancient peat. Tall, slender reeds swayed gently in a perpetual silent breeze, forming intricate labyrinths, and the occasional croak of a large unseen frog echoed through the stillness. This was the Whispering Fen, a vast ancient wetland, a place of profound beauty and hidden depths, perpetually shrouded in a delicate, shimmering mist. Ethel stepped cautiously into the fen, his boots sinking slightly into the soft, marshy ground. The silence here was broken only by the gentle lapping of water, the rustle of reeds, and the distant, haunting cries of water birds. He felt a strong presence of life here. Even amidst the fading, a tenacious vitality that clung to every drop of water and every blade of grass. Yet he also sensed a pervasive struggle, a quiet battle against the encroaching sorrow. As he ventured deeper, guided by the pearlescent stone's subtle warmth, he noticed something remarkable. Luminous plants, their leaves glowing with a soft internal light, lined the winding waterways and dotted the small, mossy islands. These weren't just decorative. They seemed to be repositories of latent magic, struggling to shine through the shroud of fading. However, even these resilient plants showed signs of distress, their glow dimmer, their growth stunted. He followed a meandering path, often navigating by carefully stepping on large, flat lily pads that floated like green stepping stones on the tranquil surface of the water. He saw schools of iridescent fish swimming beneath the surface, their scales shimmering with all the colors of the rainbow, though they too seemed to move with a sluggish grace. One evening, As the fen was painted in the soft, ethereal hues of twilight, Ethel heard a faint, distressed whimpering sound coming from a dense thicket of tall reeds. He pushed his way through, parting the reeds carefully, and discovered a small family of water sprites huddled together. Their forms, usually vibrant and sparkling like dewdrops, were now dull and translucent, their tiny leaf-like hair drooping, their expressions etched with sorrow. One of them, a tiny sprite no bigger than his thumb, was weeping softly, clutching a withered water lily. "What troubles you, little ones?" Ethel asked, his voice soft and comforting. He knelt, offering a small piece of his fragrant bread. The largest of the sprites, whose form was a little less dim, looked up, its voice a weak, watery gurgle. "The spring, the sacred spring. It weakens. Its waters grow sluggish, its light dims. Our life force is tied to it. If it fails, we fail too. The blight touches even the heart of the fen." Ethel felt a surge of compassion. "I seek a sacred spring, the dewdrop of Elysium. Is this the spring you speak of?" The sprite nodded slowly, its eyes like glistening beads of water fixed on Ethel's golden gaze. "Yes, but its waters are not as they once were. They need healing. They need rekindling." "Show me the way," Ethel urged. The sprites, with renewed, albeit faint hope, led him deeper into the fen, guiding him through a maze of reeds and luminous plants. The air grew thicker with magic here, though it was a magic tinged with profound sadness, a lament for what was being lost. Finally, they reached a hidden grotto, shrouded by weeping willow trees whose branches trailed into the water, creating a secluded sanctuary. In the very heart of this grotto lay the sacred spring, a pool of water that glowed with a faint, internal luminescence. Yet the water itself was turbid, its surface covered in a thin film of something akin to magical dust, and its usual clarity and vibrancy were muted. The plants around it, though still alive, were struggling, their leaves wilting, their colors washed out. Beside the spring, seated on a throne of woven reeds, was a figure of immense grace and ethereal beauty. She was a nymph, her skin the color of moonlight on water, her hair like flowing green algae, adorned with tiny blossoming water flowers. Her eyes, deep and knowing, held the ancient wisdom of the fen, but also a profound weariness, a deep sorrow. She was Marina, the guardian of the sacred spring. "Greetings, Ethel, son of light," Marina said, her voice like the gentle ripple of water. "I have sensed your approach and the ember of hope you carry, but even your light struggles to penetrate the sorrow that grips this spring." Ethel bowed his head. "Marina, I seek the dewdrop of Elysium to restore life and growth, but I see the spring itself is ailing." Marina sighed, a sound like a gentle breeze through reeds. "Indeed, this spring is a direct conduit to Elysium, the blessed fields where pure life energy flows. But as the world forgot its connection to the divine, so too did this conduit begin to narrow, to clog with the forgotten wishes, the unspoken sorrows, the unhealed wounds of the world. It is not poisoned but heavy with grief. The dewdrop of Elysium is not a physical dewdrop, but the concentrated essence of life, of vitality, of renewal. It can only be drawn forth from a spring that sings with joy, cleansed of sorrow." "How can it be cleansed?" Ethel asked, his heart heavy. Marina looked at him, her eyes filled with a glimmer of hope. "Your light, Ethel, is a potent cleanser. Your music can soothe the weary heart of the world. You must perform a ritual of cleansing and renewal. You must use your healing light to purify the water and play the true song of life, the ancient songs of growth and healing. to awaken its slumbering joy. Ethel nodded, understanding the profound task before him. He found a comfortable spot on the mossy bank beside the spring, surrounded by the hopeful yet anxious water sprites. He took out his lyre of glimmering quartz. This time he would not play silently. This time its notes needed to be heard, to resonate with the very essence of life. He closed his eyes, drawing upon the ember of ether within him, allowing the warmth of hope to flow through his being. He then began to play. The first notes that emanated from the quartz strings were soft, tentative, like the first droplets of rain after a long drought. They were notes of soothing, of comfort, of acknowledging the deep sorrow that permeated the spring. He focused his golden light, letting it flow from his heart, through his hands, and into the music, directing it towards the murky waters. As the music flowed, the pearlescent stone around his neck pulsed with a rhythmic warmth. The water in the spring began to stir, slowly at first, then with increasing gentle movement. The dull film on its surface began to dissipate, dissolving into faint shimmering mist. Ethel shifted his melody, letting his fingers dance across the strings, weaving a song of cleansing, of purification, of gentle release. He envisioned the sorrow being lifted, the heavy grief dissolving, leaving behind only the pure essence of life. The sprites, watching with wide, hopeful eyes, began to hum along, their tiny voices adding a soft, ethereal chorus to the lyre's music. Marina, the nymph, slowly rose from her reed throne, her own form regaining a subtle shimmer, her eyes brightening. She began to sway gently, her arms moving in graceful flowing motions, mirroring the unseen currents of purification. As Ethel's music swelled, becoming a vibrant, joyous melody of renewal, the spring underwent a profound transformation. The water cleared, becoming utterly pristine, so transparent that Ethel could see the smooth pearl-colored stones at its bottom, glowing with an inner light. Bubbles of pure liquid light began to rise to the surface, shimmering like tiny jewels. The plants around the spring visibly perked up, their leaves unfurling, their colors deepening into vivid emeralds and sapphire blues. Blossoms burst open, their petals unfurling in slow motion, revealing breathtaking beauty. And then, from the very heart of the now pristine spring, a single luminous dewdrop rose, suspended in the air above the water, glowing with an intense, vibrant emerald light. It pulsed with pure life energy, the concentrated essence of Elysium, beautiful and radiant. This was the dewdrop, a beacon of renewal. Ethel gently reached out, and the dewdrop of Elysium floated gracefully into his open palm, settling there with a comforting warmth. It wasn't merely a physical drop. It was a potent living essence, pulsing with the very heartbeat of life. He felt its incredible energy flow through him, invigorating his spirit, deepening his connection to the natural world. Marina approached, her face radiant with renewed life. "You have truly awakened it, Son of Light. You have brought joy back to the heart of the fen, and the dewdrop is yours. Carry its life-giving essence with care, for it is a precious key to rekindling the world's song." The water sprites, now sparkling with renewed vitality, danced with joy around Ethel, their tiny voices singing a chorus of thanks. Ethel felt a profound sense of accomplishment and a deep, abiding gratitude for the lessons learned in the Whispering Fen. He had not only found the dewdrop, but he had also helped a part of the world remember its joy, its vibrant heartbeat. With the ember of ether burning brightly within him, and the dewdrop of Elysium pulsing warmly in his hand, Ethel prepared for the final, most crucial stage of his journey, to awaken the whisper of harmonia in the heart of the Mountain of Echoes. The journey to the Mountain of Echoes was different from all the previous legs of Ethel's quest. He carried with him not just the lyre of glimmering quartz and the pearlescent stone, but also the vibrant essence of the ember of ether, now a steady inner glow, and the luminous dewdrop of Elysium, which he kept safe in a small woven pouch, its emerald light faintly visible even through the cloth. The Mountain of Echoes was the highest peak in the valley, even taller than the Pinnacle of Whispers, but it was not majestic and serene. Instead, it loomed with a profound, almost palpable sorrow, its slopes often shrouded in heavy grey clouds, and its peaks seeming to absorb all sound, leaving an unnatural quiet in its wake. There were no thriving forests on its lower slopes, only gnarled, twisted trees that seemed to wither even as they grew, their branches bare and skeletal. The streams that flowed from its base were sluggish and dark, reflecting the mountain's pervasive melancholy. As Ethel drew closer, the air grew colder, and a deep, resonant silence descended upon him. It was not the peaceful silence of the forest or the watchful quiet of the desert, but a profound, almost oppressive stillness, a silence that seemed to swallow all sound, all joy, all hope. He understood now why Elara had called it the Mountain of Echoes. It was where the last echoes of the divine had been sealed away, a place holding immense power, but also immense grief, the collective sorrow of a forgotten world. There was no clear path up the mountain, only crumbling scree slopes and ancient worn trails that seemed to lead nowhere. Ethel had to rely on his intuition, guided by the pearlescent stone, which now thrummed with an insistent pulse, and by the faint melancholic hum emanating from the mountain itself. He found the entrance to the mountain's heart not by seeking a grand cave, but a small, almost imperceptible fissure in the rock face, veiled by a thin curtain of perpetually weeping moss. He squeezed through the narrow opening, his golden eyes adjusting to the profound darkness within. The air was heavy, damp, and tasted faintly of ancient dust and forgotten dreams. He began to descend, following a rough, natural tunnel that spiraled downwards into the earth. The ember of ether within him flared slightly, casting a gentle, golden glow that pushed back the oppressive darkness. Allowing him to see, the tunnel led him through ancient, silent chambers carved by unseen forces into the very heart of the mountain. These chambers were vast, their ceilings soaring into unseen heights, and their walls adorned with crumbling, faded carvings. He saw images of the gods, once vibrant and powerful, now mere outlines, their forms barely discernible. He saw depictions of ancient rituals, of humans worshipping the divine, of a world brimming with magic and light. But these images were overlaid with a layer of dust, of neglect, of profound sorrow, as if the very stone was weeping for what was lost. He passed by forgotten altars, made of dark, unadorned stone, their surfaces cold and barren. He touched one and felt an overwhelming wave of desolation, of unanswered prayers, of belief slowly draining away. It was not malicious energy, but a profound, echoing sadness, the accumulated grief of a world that had forgotten its connection to the divine. This was the blight, not as a physical sickness, but as a deep, spiritual wound. Ethel walked for what felt like an eternity, his footsteps muffled by the pervasive silence, his heart aching with the weight of the mountain's sorrow. He understood that his task here was not to fight, but to comfort, to soothe, to remind. He occasionally took out his flute, playing soft, yearning melodies, simple tunes of comfort and remembrance. He played for the faded carvings, for the forgotten altars, for the silent, sorrowful air itself, hoping to stir a flicker of memory, a hint of peace. Finally, after hours of profound descent, the passage opened into a colossal central chamber, the very heart of the Mountain of Echoes. It was vast, circular, and utterly silent. In the center, on a raised plinth of dark, polished stone, was not an object, but a shimmering, almost invisible aura. A vortex of quiet, swirling light and shadow, humming with a barely perceptible ethereal sound. This was the whisper of Harmonia. The collective memory and essence of balance, connection, and the gentle song of the cosmos that once flowed from Olympus. It was the deepest wound, the source of the profound sorrow. The whisper of Harmonia was not dormant, but trapped, its vibrant energy muted, its music stifled by centuries of forgetfulness and accumulated grief. Ethel felt its immense power, yet also its immense suffering. It pulsed with all the beauty of the original divine song, yet overlaid with a profound, almost physical ache. Ethel knew this was the ultimate moment, the culmination of his journey. He approached the whisper of Harmonia, placing the dewdrop of Elysium on the plinth beside it. The dewdrop, sensing the presence of such profound sorrow, pulsed with an even brighter emerald light, as if trying to soothe the wounded essence. He took out his lyre of glimmering quartz, its strings now vibrant with inner light, reflecting the ember of ether within him. He stood before the swirling vortex, his golden eyes closed for a moment, gathering his courage, focusing all his learned abilities. He drew upon the ember of ether, letting the light of unwavering hope fill his being. He connected to the dewdrop of Elysium, feeling the vibrant pulse of pure life energy flow through his veins. He remembered the language of the wind, the wisdom of the stars, the ancient lore of the trees, the cleansing power of water, the soothing comfort of music. All his experiences, all his connections, all his newfound understanding converged in this one moment. He began to play the lyre. This was not a tentative melody, but a profound, resonant song, born of his entire being. The notes were pure, clear, and imbued with an immense power of healing and remembrance. He played the song of creation, of balance, of interconnectedness. He played the joyous melodies of the forest, the patient hum of the desert, the cleansing rhythm of the fen, the soaring aspirations of the mountain peaks. He wove in the silent vibrations of the crystals, the whispered tales of the spirits, the radiant light of Apollo, his father. As the music flowed, a vibrant golden light, emanating from Ethel and the lyre, began to pulse outwards, enveloping the whisper of Harmonia. The emerald light of the dewdrop intensified, pouring its essence of life into the muted vortex. The silence in the chamber began to crack, replaced by a low, resonant hum that grew steadily, a deep, underlying chord of the cosmos. The swirling light and shadow of the whisper of Harmonia began to transform. The shadows receded, replaced by pure, shimmering light. The melancholic hum changed, becoming a clear, harmonious melody, a multifaceted song that seemed to encompass all the sounds of the world. The rustle of leaves, the babble of brooks, the calls of birds, the gentle sigh of the wind, the distant thunder of creation itself. It was the true divine song, awakened and flowing freely, resonating with perfect balance and profound peace. The entire chamber began to glow with an ethereal golden emerald light. The ancient carvings on the walls, once faded, seemed to shimmer, their figures regaining a faint, vibrant luminescence. As if remembering their purpose, the forgotten altars pulsed with a gentle warmth. Ethel continued to play, his heart swelling with a joyous sense of purpose. He felt the threads of the world's tapestry, once brittle, now strengthening, reconnecting, interweaving once more. He wasn't bringing back the gods in their physical forms, or returning Olympus to its former thunderous glory. He was doing something far more profound. He was awakening the world's memory of them, of the divine harmony, of its inherent magic, of its deep connection to the cosmos. He was reconnecting the threads of belief, inspiring wonder and rekindling the quiet, pervasive magic that flowed through all things. Slowly, gently, the magnificent chorus of harmonia reached its crescendo, then began to softly recede, not fading away, but settling into a continuous underlying hum that permeated the entire mountain, flowing out from its very heart, spreading across the land like a soothing balm. Ethel lowered his lyre, his body vibrating with the immense energy he had channeled. The whisper of harmonia now stood before him, not as a swirling vortex, but as a pillar of pure, serene light, glowing with an inner peace, its gentle song echoing in the very core of the mountain. He had done it. He had awakened the connection. He carefully picked up the dewdrop of Elysium, which now pulsed with an even more intense, radiant emerald light, imbued with the joy of the awakened harmonia. He had gathered all three keys, and through them awakened the divine song. He emerged from the mountain of echoes, weeks later, a different kind of silence accompanying him. The oppressive gloom was gone, replaced by a quiet, hopeful stillness. The twisted trees on the lower slopes, though still gnarled, bore tiny, vibrant green shoots, like promises of renewal. The streams flowed with a clearer, more cheerful cadence. The golden glow in his eyes was now constant, a reflection of the enduring light he carried within. Ethel didn't become a god. He didn't ascend to Olympus. Instead, he became the world's guardian, a living conduit for the renewed magic, a bridge connecting humanity and nature, the divine and the mortal. The world began to awaken, slowly but surely. The blight receded, not through force, but through gentle healing and persistent renewal. The vibrant colors returned to the Whispering Vale, richer and more profound than before. The sunken village of Eridor retained its misty beauty, but now the mist shimmered with a subtle, hopeful light, and the faint echoes of Lysander's stories carried a renewed, vibrant resonance. The crystal caves of Lumina pulsed with an even brighter, clearer light, its ancient knowledge infused with new vitality. The shifting sands of Zephyr continued their dance, but the wind now carried clear, joyous melodies, the whispers of awakened spirits. The oracle's grove, the ancient oak, stood sentinel, its sparse leaves unfurling into verdant green, its wisdom resounding with clearer prophecies of hope and renewal. Ethel helped the land heal, guiding the nascent magic with his gentle touch and the harmonious notes of his lyre. He soothed the weary spirits of the fen, encouraged the growth of the forests, and inspired the scattered sprites to sing their joyous songs once more. He didn't wield immense thundering power, but rather a pervasive, gentle healing and connection, a quiet strength born of unwavering hope and profound empathy. He was the melody maker of the world, ensuring that the song of Olympus continued to echo through the lands, not as a forgotten thunderous roar, but as a soothing, omnipresent lullaby. Years passed. Ethel, now older, his golden hair touched with streaks of silver, but still possessing the gentle spirit of his youth, watched over the rejuvenated land. The Whispering Vale, his home, was a haven of vibrant life, its fields overflowing with sweet-scented flowers, its streams teeming with playful fish. Children, growing up in this newly vibrant world, knew of the divine song and their deep, inherent connection to the magical world. They spoke of the gods not as distant, forgotten entities, but as the source of the beauty and harmony that surrounded them, their stories woven into the very fabric of their lives. Ethel's golden eyes still shimmered, a living reflection of the ember of ether and the dewdrop of Elysium, and the pearlescent stone around his neck glowed with a constant comforting warmth. He continued to play his lyre of glimmering quartz, its melodies weaving through the air, carrying the whisper of harmonia, sharing the stories of old, of courage, of hope, and of the profound beauty of a world connected. He ensured with every gentle note, with every soothing touch, that the magic would never fade completely again, but would forever hum beneath the surface of the world, a constant comforting lullaby for all who chose to listen, reminding them that wonder, magic, and hope were always present, waiting to be rediscovered. And so, the last son of Olympus became the first guardian of a world renewed, forever weaving the ancient song into the heart of the future.